The message came at 3:47 inches the morning, Earth Standard Time. It traveled across the empty darkness of space for 17 hours before it reached the Deep Space Monitoring Station, floating quietly above the blue planet. The station was old, but still working well. It had been watching the stars for almost 200 years, listening for signals, tracking ships, and keeping records of everything that moved in the nearby systems. Lieutenant Yuna was on duty that night. She sat alone in the control room with her feet up on the desk and a cup of coffee in her hands. The room was dark except for the soft glow of dozens of screens showing star maps and data streams. Nothing interesting ever happened during the night shift. That was why Yuna liked it. She could read her books, drink her coffee, and enjoy the silence. When the alert sound came, she almost dropped her cup. Red lights began flashing on the main screen. The computer was telling her that an important message had arrived on the old diplomatic channel. This channel had not been used in a very, very long time. Yuna put down her coffee and leaned forward to look at the screen. The message was a video. She pressed play. A face appeared on the screen. It was not a human face. It was covered in hard black plates like the shell of a beetle. Two large red eyes stared out from the darkness. Behind the creature, Yuna could see rows of soldiers standing at attention. They were tall and thin, with 4 arms and legs that bent the wrong way. The creature began to speak. Its voice was deep and harsh, like metal scraping against stone. I am High Commander Thyros of the Velan Empire. I speak to the humans of Earth. 3,000 years ago, our ancestors made a truce with your kind. We agreed to leave you alone in your small corner of the galaxy. We agreed to let you live. That agreement is now over. Yuna raised her eyebrows. She took a sip of her coffee. The Velan Empire has grown tired of waiting, Thyros continued. Your species is weak. Your planet is rich with resources we need. Your time of peace has made you soft and stupid. In 90 standard days, our war fleet will arrive at your world. You will surrender, or you will die. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. This is our declaration of war. The video ended. The screen went black. Yuna sat there for a moment, staring at nothing. Then she did something strange. She laughed. It was not a nervous laugh or a scared laugh. It was the kind of laugh you make when someone tells a bad joke. She picked up her communication device and called her supervisor. It took a few seconds for him to answer. What is it? Captain Junho's voice was sleepy and annoyed. Do you know what time it is? Sorry to wake you, sir, Yuna said. But we just received a declaration of war from the Velan Empire. There was silence on the other end. Then Junho spoke again, sounding more awake now. The Velans? Really? I thought they were still angry about the old war. But I did not think they would actually do anything. Well, they did. They say they are coming in 90 days with their whole fleet. Junho made a sound that was somewhere between a sigh and a laugh. Okay. Send the message to Central Command. Mark it as yellow priority. Maybe green. Yuna was surprised. Green, sir? This is a declaration of war. I know what it is, Junho said. Trust me. Command will handle it. Get some sleep after you send the report. Good night, Lieutenant. The call ended. Yuna shook her head slowly. She did not understand why everyone was so calm about this. The Velans were supposed to be dangerous. The history books talked about the First Contact War like it was the worst thing that ever happened to humanity. Millions of people had died. Earth itself had almost been destroyed. And now these same aliens were coming back with an even bigger army. But orders were orders. Yuna sent the message to Central Command with a green priority tag and went back to her coffee. Far away, on the other side of the galaxy, High Commander Thyros stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the stars. His fleet stretched out behind him like a sea of metal and fire. 40,000 warships, each one carrying hundreds of soldiers and enough weapons to destroy a planet. It was the largest military force the Velan Empire had ever assembled. Thyros felt proud. His people had been waiting for this moment for 3,000 years. Back then, during the First Contact War, the humans had been nothing. They were weak little creatures with soft skin and short lives. They had no real weapons, no real ships, no real technology. The Velans had crushed them easily, destroying colony after colony, killing millions without any effort at all. But then something unexpected happened. The humans fought back. Not with strength or technology, but with pure, stubborn refusal to die. They hid in asteroids. They attacked supply lines. They used tricks and traps that the Velans had never seen before. The war dragged on for years, costing the Empire more resources than anyone had expected. In the end, the Velan leaders decided it was not worth it. The humans were not a threat. They were just an annoyance. So they offered a truce. The humans could keep their little corner of space. The Velans would leave them alone. And for 3,000 years, that was how things stayed. But Thyros knew the truth. The truce was not a gift. It was a delay. The Velan Empire had always planned to come back and finish what they started. They just needed time to prepare. Time to build a fleet so large that no amount of human tricks could stop it. Now that fleet was ready, and Thyros would lead it to victory. He turned to his communication officer. "Open a channel to the fleet. I want every ship to hear this." The officer pressed some buttons. "Channel open, Commander." Thyros spoke in a loud, clear voice. "Soldiers of the Velan Empire, today we begin our journey to Earth. The humans think they are safe. They think we have forgotten them. They are wrong. In 90 days, we will show them the true power of our people. We will burn their cities. We will take their resources. We will make them kneel before us and beg for mercy they will not receive. This is our destiny. This is our glory. Prepare for war." The channel filled with the sound of cheering. Thousands of voices shouting together in excitement. Thyros smiled, his mandibles clicking together with satisfaction. On Earth, no one cheered, no one panicked. No one did much of anything at all. At Central Command, a general named Hojin received the Velan message during his lunch break. He read it while eating a sandwich. When he finished, he called a meeting with his staff. "So the Velans are finally making their move," he said. "Anyone surprised?" No one raised their hand. "Good. Contact Admiral Minji at the Outer Defense Network. Let her know she might need to do some work soon. And someone find out if the sleepers are ready to wake up. Just in case." One of his officers looked worried. "Sir, should we tell the public? People might want to know that aliens are coming to attack us." Hojin thought about it for a moment. "No. Not yet. We do not want to cause panic over nothing. Let the Velans come. Let them see what happens when they try to fight us again." He took another bite of his sandwich. In the darkness between stars, the Velan fleet began its long journey toward Earth. 40,000 ships moving as one, carrying an army ready for war. And somewhere on that quiet monitoring station, Lieutenant Yuna finished her coffee, looked at the stars outside her window, and smiled. She did not know exactly what was going to happen when the Velans arrived, but she had a feeling it would be interesting. The truce was over. The war was coming. And humanity was not afraid. Admiral Minji was 217 years old. She did not look it. Her hair was still black, her eyes were still sharp, and her body was still strong. Modern medicine could do wonderful things. She had been alive during the last 100 years of the truce, watching, waiting, and preparing for a day that many people thought would never come. When the message arrived at her station in the Kuiper Belt, she was sitting in her private room reading a book. It was a romance novel from old Earth. The kind with dramatic love stories and happy endings. She liked these books. They reminded her that humans were not just soldiers and scientists. They were also dreamers and lovers and fools. Her communications screen lit up with an incoming call. She sighed and put down her book. "Yes?" she said. The face of General Hojin appeared on the screen. He looked tired but amused. "Admiral, I hope I am not disturbing you." "You are always disturbing me, Hojin. What is it this time?" "The Velans have declared war. They are sending a fleet of 40,000 ships. They will arrive in about 87 days now." Minji nodded slowly. She had expected this for years. Decades, even. The Velans were proud and angry. They had never accepted that the First Contact War ended without a clear victory. Sooner or later, they were going to try again. 40,000 ships, she repeated. That is a lot for them. They must have spent centuries building that fleet. They did. Our intelligence says they started construction almost 1,000 years ago. This has been planned for a very long time. And yet they still have no idea what they are walking into. Minji almost smiled. Poor things. Hojin leaned forward. Command wants to know your recommendation. Should we prepare a defensive response? Should we evacuate Earth? Minji laughed. It was a real laugh, full and warm. Evacuate Earth? Hojin. Earth is a nature preserve. Nobody lives there except park rangers and tourists. The real human population is spread across 2,000 worlds in multiple galaxies. Even if the Velans destroyed Earth completely, it would be like losing a museum. Sad, but not dangerous. I know that, but Command likes to follow procedures. Tell Command to relax. I will handle this personally. But first, I need to wake up some old friends. She ended the call and stood up from her chair. Her room was small and simple, filled with books and old photographs. On one wall hung a painting of Earth as it looked 3,000 years ago, covered in cities and lights and smoke. That Earth was gone now. The planet had been healed and returned to its natural state. Forests covered the land. Animals roamed free. The oceans were clean and full of life. Humans had learned a lot in 3,000 years. They learned that they did not need to destroy their home to be strong. They learned that real power came from knowledge and patience and unity. And they learned that the universe was much, much bigger than anyone had imagined. Minji walked through the station toward the special section that most people did not know existed. It was called the Vault. Inside were hundreds of cryo chambers, each one containing a sleeping human. These were the sleepers, elite soldiers who had volunteered to be frozen until they were needed. Some of them had been asleep for 500 years, others for more than 1,000. The vault was cold and quiet. Blue lights glowed softly above each chamber, showing the vital signs of the people inside. Minji walked past rows of sleeping warriors until she found the one she was looking for. The name on the chamber was simple: Commander Taehyun. She knew his story. Everyone knew his story. Taehyun had been a young soldier during the First Contact War. He had fought in the final battles, watching his friends die around him while the Velans burned everything humanity had built. When the truce was signed, he did not celebrate. He knew the Velans would come back. He knew the war was not really over, so he volunteered to sleep. He told the doctors to wake him when the Velans returned. That was 3,000 years ago. Minji pressed the button to begin the waking process. The chamber made a soft humming sound. Ice began to melt away from the glass. Inside, Taehyun's eyes slowly opened. It took him a few minutes to fully wake up. His body was stiff and confused after so many years of frozen sleep. But his mind was clear. He looked at Minji with eyes that were old and young at the same time. How long? He asked. His voice was rough and dry. 3,000 years. Give or take a few decades. Taehyun sat up slowly. He looked at his hands, then at the chamber around him. It feels like I only slept for a night. That is how cryo-sleep works. Your body did not age. Your mind did not dream. You are the same person you were when you went to sleep. And the Velans? They are coming. A fleet of 40,000 ships. They will be here in 87 days. Taehyun was quiet for a moment. Then he asked the question that Minji had been waiting for. How many ships do they have? 40,000. He laughed. It was a short, sharp sound. That is it? That is all they could build in 3,000 years? Minji smiled. I thought you would say that. Come with me. I want to show you what we have been doing while you were asleep. She led him out of the vault and through a series of corridors to a large observation room. The room had a huge window that looked out into space. What Taehyun saw through that window made him stop and stare. Ships, thousands of ships. but not like any ships he had ever seen before. These were enormous, dark, and powerful. Each one was the size of a small moon. They hung in space like sleeping giants, waiting to be called. "What are those?" Taehyun whispered. "To tangent-class vessels," Minji said. "We designed them for moving planets. Literally. We can pick up a planet and move it to a different star system if we want to. They have gravity engines, dimensional drives, and enough power to crack a world in half. And how many do we have? About 200 in this sector alone. There are more in other parts of the galaxy." Taehyun shook his head slowly. He had gone to sleep in a world where humans were struggling to survive. He had woken up in a world where humans were gods. "Show me more," he said. Minji spent the next several hours showing him everything. She showed him the colonies spread across 2,000 worlds. She showed him the cities floating in the clouds of gas giants. She showed him the farms growing food on asteroids and the factories building machines on the surface of dead stars. She showed him the weapons, too. Gravity bombs that could crush a fleet into dust. Time fields that could freeze enemies in a single moment forever. Nanobots that could eat through any material in seconds. Neural disruptors that could turn off an enemy's brain from 1,000 kilometers away. But the most impressive thing was not the weapons. It was the people. Humans now lived for 300 years or more. Their bodies were enhanced with technology that made them faster, stronger, and smarter than their ancestors could have imagined. They could survive in space without suits. They could communicate through thoughts alone. They could learn entire languages in a day and remember everything they ever experienced. And there were billions of them, spread across the stars, working together, building together, growing together. The Velans think they are coming to fight the same humans they fought 3,000 years ago, Minji said. They think we are still weak and scared and divided. They have no idea what we have become. Taehyun looked out the window at the massive ships floating in the darkness. He thought about his friends who had died in the First Contact War. He thought about the fear and the pain and the desperation of those terrible years. Then he thought about the Velans flying toward Earth right now, believing they were about to win an easy victory. "When do we move?" he asked. "Soon. But first, we wait. We let them come close. We let them see Earth and think they have won. And then, we show them the truth." Taehyun nodded. "Good. I have been waiting 3,000 years for this. I can wait a few more weeks." Minji put a hand on his shoulder. "Welcome back, Commander. We missed you." "I missed you too, Admiral. Now let us go teach these bugs a lesson they will never forget." In the cold darkness between stars, the Velan fleet continued its journey. 40,000 ships, carrying millions of soldiers, all believing they were about to conquer a weak and helpless enemy. They had no idea that the enemy was watching them, waiting for them, and smiling. The Velan fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. 40,000 ships appeared in a flash of blue light, spreading across the darkness like a swarm of angry insects. High Commander Thyros stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars realign themselves after the long journey. They had arrived. After 90 days of travel, after 3,000 years of waiting, the Velan Empire was finally here to finish what it had started. Thyros looked at the tactical display showing his fleet. Every ship was in perfect position. Every weapon was charged and ready. His soldiers were eager for battle, their blood hot with the promise of victory and glory. "Scan the system," he ordered. "Show me what the humans have." His officers worked quickly. Data began flowing across the screens. Thyros studied it carefully, looking for signs of defense stations, military ships, or any kind of resistance. He found almost nothing. There were some small stations orbiting the outer planets, a few transport ships moving between moons, some satellites around Earth itself, but no warships, no weapons platforms, no signs of any military presence at all. "This cannot be right," Thyros said. "They have had 90 days to prepare. Where are their defenses?" One of his officers spoke up nervously. "Commander, our scans are accurate. There is nothing here. The humans have not prepared any kind of military response." Thyros felt confusion and anger mixing in his chest. He had expected some resistance. He had expected the humans to at least try to fight back. This complete lack of defense was either very stupid or very suspicious. Perhaps they are surrendering, another officer suggested. Perhaps they know they cannot win and have decided not to waste their lives fighting. Perhaps, Thyros said slowly. But something felt wrong. The humans he remembered from the First Contact War were not the type to give up without a fight. They were stubborn and clever and full of tricks. He was about to order the fleet to advance when something appeared on the sensors. A single ship, moving slowly from the inner system toward the Velen fleet. It was small, barely the size of a shuttle, and it was heading straight for them. "What is that?" Thyros demanded. "Unknown vessel, Commander. It appears to be a human ship, but it is not armed. It is broadcasting a diplomatic signal." Thyros clicked his mandibles together in thought. A diplomatic ship? The humans wanted to talk? This was interesting. "Let them come," he said. "I want to hear what they have to say before we destroy them." The small black ship continued its approach until it was floating directly in front of the Velan flagship. Then a communication request came through. "Put it on screen," Thyros ordered. The image that appeared was a human female. She had long, dark hair and a calm, pleasant face. She was smiling. "Hello," she said. "My name is Ambassador Sujin. I represent the Human Cooperative Alliance. I am here to welcome you to Sol Space." Thyros stared at her. Was this some kind of joke? "Welcome us?" he repeated. "We are here to conquer your world. We are here to destroy everything you have built. And you are welcoming us?" Sujin nodded, still smiling. "Yes. We have been expecting you for quite some time. We knew you would come eventually. The truce was always going to end. So, here you are. Welcome. You are either very brave or very stupid, human. I have been called both at different times. But today, I am simply doing my job. I am here to give you one chance to turn around and go home. Take your fleet back to Velan space. Tell your people that the war is over before it begins. No one needs to die today." Thyros laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. "You think we came all this way to turn around? You think 40,000 warships traveled across the galaxy just to go home? No. Human. We are here to finish what we started 3,000 years ago. We are here to end your species." Sujin did not stop smiling. "I understand. I had to give you the chance. It would not be polite otherwise. But I want you to know that everything that happens next is your choice. You could have gone home. You chose not to. Enough of this." Thyros turned to his weapons officer. "Destroy that ship." The weapons officer pressed a button. A beam of bright energy shot from the flagship toward the small human vessel. The beam hit the ship directly. But instead of exploding, the ship simply flickered. The energy passed right through it, like it was made of nothing but light and air. Thyros felt his stomach drop. What happened? Why is it still there? His officers scrambled to check their instruments. "Commander, the ship is not real. It is a projection. A hologram made of hard light. There is no physical vessel there." Sujin laughed softly on the screen. "That was rude. I will have to note that in my report. You fired on a diplomatic vessel without warning. Not very civilized." Thyros was about to respond when every alarm on his ship began screaming at once. Red lights flashed everywhere. Officers shouted in confusion and fear. "Report!" Thyros yelled. "What is happening? Commander, ships are appearing all around us. They came out of nowhere. We did not detect them until they were already here." Thyros looked at the tactical display and felt his blood turn cold. 200 ships had materialized around his fleet, but these were not normal ships. They were massive, bigger than anything he had ever seen. Each one was the size of a small moon. Dark and silent and terrible. They hung in space like mountains floating in the void, surrounding the Valen Armada completely. His fleet of 40,000 ships suddenly looked very, very small. "Impossible," Thyros whispered. "Where did they come from? How did they hide from our sensors?" Sujin's voice came through the communication channel again. I told you we were expecting you. Did you think we would not be prepared? Uh, a new voice joined the channel. It was deeper and harder than the ambassador's voice. The voice of a soldier. This is Commander Tae-hyun, of the Human Defense Force. I fought against your ancestors 3,000 years ago. I watched them kill my friends. I watched them burn our homes. I went to sleep and waited all this time just for this moment. Thyros recognized the name. Tae-hyun was a legend among the Velans, too. He was the human commander who had caused so much trouble during the First Contact War, the one who refused to give up, no matter how badly things went. You are still alive? Thyros asked. I am. And I am going to give you the same offer the ambassador gave you. Turn around. Go home. Tell your leaders that the war is over. If you do this, we will let you leave in peace. Thyros looked at his tactical display. His fleet was completely surrounded. The human ships were not moving or attacking. But they did not need to. Their mere presence was enough to show who was in control. For a moment, he considered accepting the offer. He considered ordering his ships to retreat. But then he thought about what would happen when he returned to Velan space. He would be called a coward. His name would be shamed. His family would be disgraced. Everything he had worked for his entire life would be destroyed. No. He would not run. He would rather die fighting than live as a coward. We do not retreat, Thyros said. We do not surrender. The Velan Empire does not bow to anyone, especially not to humans. You may have bigger ships, but we have more of them. Attack! The Velan fleet began to move. Thousands of ships turned their weapons toward the human vessels and opened fire. Beams of energy and waves of missiles shot across the darkness, heading toward the giant ships surrounding them. The weapons hit their targets, but nothing happened. The energy beams splashed against invisible shields and disappeared. The missiles exploded against barriers that seemed to appear out of nowhere. Not a single human ship was damaged. Taehyun's voice came through the channel one more time. You had your chance. You chose war. Now you will see what that means. Sujin's hologram ship flickered and disappeared. The diplomatic phase was over. Commander Tae-hyun gave a simple order from the bridge of his Titangent-class vessel. Begin, and the real battle started. What happened next was not a battle. A battle requires two sides fighting each other. This was something else. This was a demonstration. The first human ship to act was a Titangent-class vessel called the Silent Mountain. It did not fire any weapons in the way the Velans understood weapons. Instead, it simply activated a gravity field around a group of 300 Velan cruisers. The effect was immediate and horrible. The gravity inside the field increased by a factor of 10,000. Metal bent. Glass shattered. Living bodies were crushed flat in less than a second. 300 ships, each one carrying hundreds of soldiers, became 300 balls of twisted metal no bigger than a human fist. They fell into the darkness like dropped stones. High Commander Thyros watched in horror from his flagship. His screens showed the destruction in perfect detail. One moment there were ships. The next moment there was nothing but debris. All ships, spread out, he ordered. Do not let them catch us in groups. Attack from multiple directions. His fleet tried to obey. Ships scattered in every direction, firing their weapons at anything that looked like a target. But the human ships were not where they appeared to be. They flickered and moved, appearing in one place and then another, impossible to track or target. Lieutenant Do-hyun was having fun. He sat in the cockpit of his small fighter craft, watching the Velan fleet fall apart around him. His job today was simple. Test the new nanobot weapons on real targets. He had been training for this for 50 years. But there was nothing like actual combat to show what a weapon could really do. He flew his fighter toward a group of Velan destroyers. They saw him coming and opened fire. Dozens of energy beams shot toward his tiny ship. Do-hyun smiled and activated his phase drive. His ship became slightly out of sync with normal space and time. The weapons fire passed through him like he was a ghost. He flew right into the middle of the enemy formation, completely untouched. Hello, friends, he said to himself. I brought you a present. He pressed a button and released a cloud of nanobots. They were too small to see. Billions of tiny machines floating through space like invisible dust. They landed on the Velen ships and began to eat. The nanobots were designed to consume metal. They broke down the molecular structure of anything they touched and used the materials to make more of themselves. Within seconds, they had spread across the hulls of 400 enemy ships. The Velens did not understand what was happening at first. Then holes began appearing in their armor. Small holes at first, then bigger ones. Air rushed out. Fires started. Systems failed. In less than a minute, 400 ships became 400 empty shells, eaten from the outside in. Do-hyun flew away, whistling a happy tune. On the bridge of her command ship, Admiral Minji watched the battle unfold on her tactical display. She was drinking tea from a small cup, sitting comfortably in her chair like she was watching a movie instead of a war. A young officer named Haeyeon stood beside her, looking nervous. She had never seen combat before. None of the younger generation had. They had grown up in a time of peace and plenty, never knowing the fear and desperation that their ancestors had faced. "Admiral," Haeyeon said quietly, "should we accept their surrender transmissions? Several enemy ships are trying to communicate with us." Minji took a sip of her tea. "Not yet. But sir, they are asking for mercy. They want to stop fighting. I know what they want. But this is not about what they want. This is about what they need to understand." 1. This is about what they need to understand. Haeyeon looked confused. "I do not understand." Minji put down her tea and turned to face the young officer. Her eyes were calm but serious. 3,000 years ago, the Valens came to our home and tried to wipe us out. They killed millions of innocent people. They burned entire planets. They did not offer mercy then. They did not accept surrender. They wanted to exterminate us completely. But we are not like them, Haeyeon said. We are better than that. Yes, we are. And that is exactly why we need to show them the full extent of what we can do. Not to hurt them, but to teach them. They need to understand that we could destroy them completely if we wanted to. They need to know that our mercy is a choice, not a weakness. Otherwise, they will never respect the peace we offer them. Haeyeon thought about this for a moment. Then she nodded slowly. I think I understand. Good, now watch and learn. The battle continued. The human ships demonstrated capability after capability, each one more impressive than the last. One Titangent-class vessel activated a temporal displacement field around a squadron of Velen battleships. Time inside the field slowed to almost nothing. The enemy ships hung frozen in space, their weapons halfway fired, their crews trapped in a single moment that would last forever. Another human ship released a wave of electromagnetic pulses that shut down every system on 2,000 Velan vessels at once. The ships went dark and began drifting helplessly through space, their crews alive but completely unable to do anything. A third ship opened a small dimensional rift directly in front of an advancing Velen formation. The enemy ships flew into the rift before they could stop and came out the other side in pieces, scattered across 3 different star systems. Through it all, not a single human died. Not one. The Velens fired millions of shots, launched thousands of missiles, and deployed every weapon they had. None of it mattered. The humans were simply too advanced, too fast, too powerful. High Commander Thyros watched his empire's pride and glory being torn apart. His fleet of 40,000 ships was down to less than 4,000 in just 6 hours. The rest were destroyed, captured, or disabled. His soldiers were dying by the millions, while the humans did not lose a single life. He had never felt so helpless, so small, so wrong. An officer approached him carefully. Commander, we have lost 90% of our fleet. We cannot continue fighting. We must retreat. Thyros wanted to argue. He wanted to order his remaining ships to fight to the death. But what would be the point? They were not fighting. They were being slaughtered. Open a channel to the human commander, he said quietly. Tell him we surrender. The communication screen lit up with the face of Commander Taehyun. He looked exactly as the old records described him. Young and hard and full of fire. But there was something else in his eyes too. Something that looked almost like pity. You surrender? Taehyun asked. Yes, we surrender. Please, stop the attack. We have lost. Taehyun was silent for a long moment. Then, he nodded. Admiral Minji, you may accept their surrender now. Minji's voice came through the channel. All human vessels, cease fire. The enemy has surrendered. Begin rescue and recovery operations for enemy survivors. The weapons stopped. The chaos ended. Silence fell across the battlefield. Thyros looked at the destruction around him. His mighty fleet was gone. His soldiers were dead or captured. Everything he had believed about his people's strength and humanity's weakness had been proven completely wrong. Why? He asked. Why did you not just destroy us completely? You have the power. You could have killed every single one of us, Taehyun answered. Because that is not who we are. 3,000 years ago, your ancestors tried to exterminate us. They failed. We spent those 3,000 years becoming something greater. We did not waste our time planning revenge. We built a civilization that does not need to destroy others to feel strong. Then what happens now? Now you come with us. You meet our leaders. You learn the truth about what humanity has become. And then we talk about the future. Thyros looked at his broken ships and dead soldiers. He thought about the shame and disgrace waiting for him back home. But he also thought about what he had just witnessed. Power beyond imagination, used not for destruction but for demonstration. Strength beyond measure. Held back, by choice. Maybe, he thought. There was something to learn from these humans after all. Very well, he said. We will come with you. We will talk. And so the battle ended. Not with total destruction, but with total understanding. The Velans finally knew the truth. They had picked a fight with the wrong species. 1 week after the battle, the leaders of the Velan Empire gathered in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council Chamber. This was a neutral station, built thousands of years ago for meetings between different species. It had not been used for anything important in a very long time. Now it was full. Representatives from all 12 species of the Velan Empire filled the hall. They sat in rows of curved seats, looking down at the central platform, where the negotiations would take place. Their faces showed fear, confusion, and something that might have been hope. High Commander Thyros was there too. He no longer wore his military uniform. His rank had been taken away after the disaster at Seoul. Now he was just another witness, watching history happen without any power to change it. The human delegation arrived without ceremony. There were only 3 of them. Ambassador Sujin walked in front, wearing simple clothes and carrying no weapons. Behind her came Admiral Minji and Commander Taehyun. They looked calm and peaceful, like they were attending a friendly dinner instead of a post-war negotiation. The hall fell silent as they took their places on the platform. Sujin smiled at the gathered aliens. Thank you for coming. I know this is difficult for many of you. Your fleet was destroyed. Your soldiers are dead or captured. Your pride is wounded, but I want you to know that we did not bring you here to punish you or humiliate you. We brought you here to offer you something better. One of the Velan leaders spoke up. His name was Governor Krath, and he was one of the most powerful politicians in the Empire. Better? You defeated us completely. You showed us that we are nothing compared to your power. What could you possibly offer us now? Peace, Sujin said simply. Real peace. Not a truce like before, where both sides wait and plan and prepare for the next war. True peace, where we work together instead of against each other. Another leader laughed bitterly. Work together? After what happened? After 3,000 years of hatred? How can you expect us to simply forget everything? We do not expect you to forget. We expect you to learn. Admiral Minji stepped forward. Let me tell you a story. 3,000 years ago, humanity was weak. We had just learned to travel between stars. We thought we were alone in the universe. Then your ancestors came and showed us how wrong we were. They attacked our colonies. They killed our people. They almost wiped us out completely. She paused, letting the words settle over the audience. We survived. Barely. And when the truce was signed, we had a choice to make. We could spend the next 3,000 years planning revenge. We could build weapons and armies and prepare to destroy you the way you tried to destroy us. Many of our people wanted exactly that, but we chose differently. We chose to use those 3,000 years to become better. Not just stronger, but wiser. Not just more powerful, but more peaceful. We spread across the galaxy. We built new worlds. We cured diseases and ended poverty and learned to live for centuries instead of decades. We became something greater than we ever could have been if we had focused only on revenge. Commander Taehyun spoke next. His voice was rough and tired, carrying the weight of 3,000 years of waiting. I am one of the few humans who remembers the first contact war personally. I watched my friends die. I saw our homes burn. I hated your people with every part of my soul. When I went into cryosleep, I thought I would wake up and finally get my revenge. He looked directly at Thyros. But when I woke up and saw what we had become, I realized that revenge did not matter anymore. We had already won. Not because we could destroy you, but because we did not need to. Your attack was nothing to us. A minor inconvenience. A footnote in our history. That is the real victory. Thyros could not meet his eyes. He looked down at the floor, feeling the shame of his defeat more deeply than ever before. Sujin continued. Here is what we are offering. The Velen Empire will disband its military forces. You will not need them anymore because no one will attack you. You will be under our protection, along with every other species in this region of the galaxy. In return, you will be welcomed into the Human Cooperative Alliance. You will have access to our technology, our medicine, our knowledge. Your people will live longer, healthier, happier lives. Your children will grow up in a galaxy where war is just a memory from the past. Governor Krath frowned. And what do you get from this arrangement? What is the benefit to humanity? The benefit is that we do not have to watch another species suffer. The benefit is that we can share what we have built instead of hoarding it. The benefit is that we can finally put the past behind us and move forward together. You expect us to believe that? You expect us to believe that you want nothing in return? Sujin shrugged. You can believe whatever you want. But ask yourself this question. If we wanted to conquer you, we would have done it already. If we wanted revenge, we could have killed every single one of your people. We have the power to do anything we want. And what we want is peace. The hall was silent. The Velan leaders looked at each other, uncertain and afraid. They had spent their entire lives believing that power meant control, that strength meant dominance. The idea that someone could be strong enough to destroy them and choose not to was difficult to accept. Finally, an old Velan female stood up. She was small and frail, her shell cracked with age, but her voice was clear and strong. I remember the first contact war too, she said. I was young then, just a child. I remember the celebrations when we thought we had defeated the humans. I remember the songs we sang about our great victory. But I also remember the fear that the humans would come back someday and do to us what we had done to them. She looked at Sujin. For 3,000 years, that fear has been with us. It has shaped our politics, our culture, our entire way of life. Everything we have done has been about preparing for the day when humanity would return for revenge. And now that day has come. You have returned. You have shown us your power, and instead of revenge, you offer us peace. Tears began to fall from her ancient eyes. I accept. Whatever the cost, whatever the terms, I accept. I am tired of being afraid. I am ready to try something new. One by one, the other leaders began to stand. Some of them were crying too. Others looked stunned, like they could not believe what was happening. But they all stood. They all accepted. Even Thyros, disgraced and defeated, rose to his feet. He walked down from his seat and stood before Commander Taehyun, the human, who had been his enemy for 3,000 years. The human he had tried to destroy. I do not understand your people, Thyros said quietly. I do not understand how you can be so powerful and so merciful at the same time, but I want to learn. I want to understand. Taehyun looked at him for a long moment. Then he extended his hand in the human gesture of friendship. Then let us teach each other, he said. That is how peace begins. Thyros reached out and took his hand. Sujin smiled and began reading the official treaty. It was long and detailed, covering everything from military disarmament to technology sharing to cultural exchange programs. But the most important part was simple: no more war, no more fear, no more hatred. Just two civilizations, finally ready to move forward together. Months later, on the quiet green surface of Earth, a young student named Nari sat under a tree and read about the Velen incident in her history book. It was just one chapter among many, a small event in the long story of human expansion across the universe. She read about the declaration of war that no one took seriously. She read about the battle that lasted only 6 hours. She read about the peace treaty that changed the galaxy forever. It all seemed so distant, so unimportant. Just another example of humanity doing what humanity always did: meeting challenges, solving problems, moving forward. Nari closed her book and looked up at the sky. The stars were coming out. Tiny points of light scattered across the darkness. She knew that behind those stars were thousands of worlds, billions of people, countless wonders waiting to be discovered. Her ancestors had once feared those stars. They had looked up at the night sky and wondered if something terrible was hiding in the darkness. Now Nari looked at the same stars and felt only hope, because she knew the truth. The darkness was not something to fear, it was something to explore, and humanity would explore it forever.